behalf of the Center for Disaster Preparedness in the Philippines, and actually most of the work I will present here has been done in collaboration with the Center for Disaster Preparedness in the Philippines. And I'm going to give this talk in collaboration with my Filipino PhD student, Jake Kadag, who is actually in the Philippines doing some field work of this kind in some places. So, we had a very good session this morning, a hard talk about how to build a relationship and how to build trust between stakeholders involved at the local level in DRR. And I'm going to suggest how to bridge the gap through a specific tool, which is a participatory mapping tool, which I will introduce to you. So I want to make a case about building trust and building, fostering dialogue in DRR using maps. So, can you hear me if I don't use the... Okay, I will try to... If we've got maps of these kinds, so we've got a lot of maps. Okay, that's the point. It works every time, actually. Why is it upside down? Why is it supposed to be upside down? Okay, we are used to see the map that way around, okay? Pointing to the north. But why is that? It's because we've got this Western concept, Western mind, which is that the map should point to the north. But in many cases, in many societies, it doesn't make any sense. Because the north doesn't make any sense. So we are often stuck in this kind of situation where we've got these very, very good maps, very Western maps. This is from Gunung Merapi in Indonesia. This is the hazard map of this kind. Very good, very useful map. Important, we need these kinds of hazard maps. But everything is very Western. The language, the jargon, technical jargon, the color coding is very Western. Everything is very Western. The language is Bahasa Indonesia, the people speak Japanese. So it's not understandable by the people in the field. But it's very important. At the same time, we've got these very good, very useful, very important sketch maps made by NGOs and the communities, which go from the bottom up, but which are dismissed by scientists and the local government because they are not skilled, they are not georeferenced, so the scientists and the local government cannot overlap their knowledge on top of this. So we've got two very good initiatives which are useful, the top-down hazard maps, or scientific maps, or planning maps, and on the other side we've got these fantastic, useful, important maps, but both initiatives never meet, basically. So the point in this talk is to suggest a tool which is not the panacea. We will not solve every problem with these tools, but the point is to have at the same place, at the same time, around the same table, all stakeholders, including NGOs and communities, and including scientists, government officials, all together at the same place, at the same time, on the same tool. And I think it's important to build trust through dialogue. So the tool is, so actually it's part of a framework of this kind, where we will be integrating knowledge from the top, scientific knowledge and local knowledge from the bottom up, then involving experts, I mean NGOs, I mean scientists, government officials, and involving as well members of the communities, involving these marginalized groups, like the kids, like the women, like elderlies and the likes, to move to actions which would include measures from the top and measures from the bottom. And I will illustrate this process through pictures of the kind of mapping we're doing right now. Mostly in the Philippines, but we've done some work in Cambodia and we've done some work in France. And we have done some work in Cape Verde as well in Africa. Okay, so the tool is not new. It's called Participatory 3D mapping, three-dimensional mapping. It's made of local materials, it's made of carton, styrofoam, so whatever material we find in the place. It's made of local paints, it's made of push pins, it's made of yarns. So we use local materials, basically what we find in the place, and these maps are scaled, and these maps are georeferenced. So they are made by the people, built by the people, we don't do anything. They actually built up the model by cutting layers of cartons, layers of styrofoams, and overlapping them to represent the terrain of their plate. This is a small island in the Philippines. And the point is, therefore, to emphasize this local knowledge, because most of the knowledge, most of the information plotted on the map come from the people based on their own knowledge. And actually, I've got a nice story about this map, which was done last January. This is the terrain is very rolly. It's very mountainous, actually. It's not rolly, it's mountainous. It's in central Philippines. It's on foot of the volcano there. And we had the GPS point of one place, of one house there. But we kept the GPS point for us just to verify. And we asked the guy living in this house to plot his house on the map. And he actually plotted his house using a pushpin only 1 cm away from the exact location of his house. And it's very complicated, it's a very big map, it's several meters by several meters. And he knows exactly where his house is on the map. So local knowledge is very important, and you can emphasize it through this kind of mapping. Then we can have as well scientists overlapping their knowledge. You can build a combination of hybrid knowledge on the map. Scientists can plot their information, their data, because the map is scaled, it's georeferenced, so it's very easy for them to locate information which are important to them and to plot their hazard maps on top of the local knowledge. Okay, to lead to these kind of assessments which make knowledge tangible, basically. I think it's important because in time, actually vulnerability, risk are intangible concepts unless you've got damage in the place. Here you can have a concrete assessment, a tangible assessment of vulnerable assets, including the most vulnerable people like the children, the pregnant women, disabled, the resources available in the place like the vehicle for evacuation, the boats, and the big house where you can evacuate. All of this based on local knowledge, and it's very powerful for people to assess their own risk and then to include scientific knowledge as well on top of this. So you can involve all the experts. I mean, this picture involve NGO workers, indigenous people, planning officer, municipal board member in the southern Philippines. All could discuss issues related to DRR all together. We can have these marginalized groups like the kids here, and the kids were talking face to face and challenging the knowledge of the adults and the older people here, because they plotted their own information on the map and it worked very well. And we ended up with this kind of dialogue. And I like this picture because it emphasizes all stakeholders discussing the same issues face to face. You've got here a volcanologist, and you've got the people from the community, and you've got the planning officer of the municipality. And these people before never talked to a scientist in their life because they didn't have any grasp on scientific knowledge. But here, because the map was theirs, they actually they were able to discuss hazard-prone areas, they were discussing flood-prone areas and lahar-prone areas with the scientists, face-to-face, with the same tangible information, and it worked very well to build trust between stakeholders involved in DRR. And then you can have all of this transferred to actions, and you can have the information on the map integrated into a GIS. When you've got the GIS in the place, when you've got the skills, when you've got the hardware, when you've got the software, you can work with NGOs, with the local government to have this data used by local governments, NGOs. And it's very important because actually you have here more data than a satellite image. It's very cheap. One project costs more or less $500 US. It's very, very cheap. Compared to a satellite image which you have to purchase at very expensive prices. Here you've got more data, you can update the data every day if you want. You've got the pregnant woman who gives birth, you change the pushpin of a pregnant woman, you put the pushpin of a kid. Okay, at the same time you can have some actions planning from the bottom. Here in this place they had this sort of columnar data, sort of notebooks compiling data at the household level. How many people with tuberculosis, how many people having sewage in the house, how many people having running water, etc. So that you can put, you can combine actually the data which are on the map with the data which are in the notebook by putting a number on the pushpin of the house here and connecting it to the notebook. So you've got like a GIS, you've got the spatial information, you've got the tabular informations, but without any skills required, without any hardware required, without any software required. And then you come up with actions, actual actions. This is an action plan drawn in the Philippines as well, where we plotted evacuation routes, where we plotted evacuation house, the vehicles for evacuating. We had some flood and tide markers. We have some subsidence markers as well. And the dikes which may be used by pedestrians to evacuate, etc., etc. And based on both scientific and local knowledge, and based on both expertise from the outsiders and from the community members. And another point, if I've got more time, you can actually integrate all these activities, DRR activities, in the everyday planning of the place. In that place, the same actually as I showed you before, in that place the members of the community were thinking of having a bridge, because the 6 villages which are here actually are not connected to the center of the municipality. They don't have any doctors, nurses, etc. in case of emergency. So they at first planned to have the bridge somewhere here, which is the place where the boats now cross the river, but they realized afterwards on the map that the best place, because the needs are somewhere here, the best place to build the bridge is somewhere here. So now they are lobbying a local NGO to have a bridge somewhere here. And it enables to integrate DRR into everyday development planning at the local level. Okay, so as a conclusion, this tool is not the panacea again. We need some more tools to facilitate dialogue, to build trust between stakeholders. It doesn't work very well for interpersonal relationships, for intangible assets. It works well for assets, resources you can plot, you can locate on the map. It doesn't work very well for integrating the time, how vulnerability, how capacities fluctuate in time, daily, seasonally, yearly, on the longer run. We don't really know how to do that on the map. There are some technical issues as well, like the scale and like the monitoring in the long term. You have to upgrade the map. It works, usually it works very well, but you have to, you need a local facilitator for upgrading the map. Okay, and we've got a website if you want to check our website, and this is PreventionWeb.net. We are working on a manual right now, a handbook for practitioners, which will be published by CAFOD, the NGO, the British NGO CAFOD. And on the website you will find some brochures in 6 languages, in Bahasa Indonesia, Filipino, French, English, Spanish and Portuguese. And you've got many information on the website, which is actually under improvement right now, but still you can get the information. Thanks a lot. Any time for questions? Yeah? Any questions? Yeah?
Just a couple of points on that. Okay. Just a couple of points on that. I'm from Southern Africa, and in Southern Africa we're working with communities using scenario planning and looking at various different situations that people will be involved in. Not just specifically DRR related. It's quite a bit broader than that. One of the interesting things, again, is how people perceive the world around them. If you talk to technical people, they will often, and you get them to draw a map of the area that they live in, it's a flat map which will show rivers and all the rest of it. If you ask a person from a villager to draw the same picture, they draw a different kind. They actually draw a physical picture showing a mountain, a school, a house. So it's how people actually perceive these things that is quite interesting, and how you actually can use it that way.
Yeah, actually, I know many communities in the Philippines which evaluate distances in terms of the number of mountains you have to go through to reach another place. And in this case, when you've got the third dimension, it helps in appraising the territory, and we had many experiences where the third dimension actually was very helpful in that context. Just one more point which I did not mention, the scale. The scale of the maps are usually 1:500 to 1:1000, so we can work at the household level. We plot all the information for each house in the place. It's not the usual P3DM you can see for natural resource management, for conflict resolution, which are at scales which range from 1:10,000 to 1:20,000, so you don't have the details at the household level. Here we've got all the details, all the pregnant women, all the elderly, all the people with disabilities, etc. at the household level. And all the vehicles, all the animals at the household level. Any more time? Any time left?
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, Any more questions? Yeah, please.
I think it's wonderful that you're using local knowledge, but I was wondering if you had considered doing the same kind of thing periodically, and then you come up with temporal, you'll get the temporal aspect to it. One of the things that I've been working on is flood risk, and you can, use temporal series of photographs to look at the way a river changes over time, which portions of the channel have a tendency to shift, and that kind of thing. But the maps that you're making could actually be redone periodically, and then you would get some sense of the trends.
Yeah, they are actually upgraded. They are updated and upgraded regularly. I mean, when a pregnant woman gives birth, the people change the pushpin. They remove the pushpin of the pregnant women and then put the pushpin of a kid. Because in terms of the needs for evacuating, it's not the same, for example. And then the locals can take pictures of that and keep the pictures. So we have a sort of time dimension. We can overlap actually layers of plastic cover for different seasons, for different morning and afternoon, for example. But the point is that, to my mind, all information need to be accessible at first, without having to look for the layer of plastic and then overlapping it again. It's possible, definitely. You can take pictures, you can, into the GIS, you can keep files of the different updating you've made to the map. Obviously, you can do that. But I mean, it's not very dynamic. It's not very... it's possible, but it's not. I think it's frustrating. We could do better than that. I think we need suggestions actually, because all our improvements actually came from the communities. All the improvements we made in terms of conceptualizing actually, and in terms of methods, came from the people themselves. Every time we do one P3DM, we have some new ideas coming out from the communities. And I'm sure sometimes we'll have an idea for the time.
I just think it's really useful, especially if you're trying to be proactive and plan ahead.
Yeah, it is indeed. It is indeed. Any more questions or any time left? Okay, Lorenzo? Should I wrap up? I thought this 1 minute, so one more question. No. So you don't want me to hear the gong. Thanks a lot. Cheers.